The session is supporting the next generation of farmers. And I think we all agree that's something very important we've got to do. Looking at the government figures, statistics, 67% of farmers are over 55. And the vast majority of farmers come through direct farming connection. And the whole point of this is to listen to people's experiences, understand the journeys they've been on, and get advice, also very much practical advice, how you might get into the farming industry. Now, we're from the Nature Friendly Farming Network. We're basically a farmer-led organisation who's passionate about improving nature on all farms in the United Kingdom. And we do that through knowledge transfer, we do it by lobbying and engaging with as many farmers as possible to go on the regenerative farming route. That's who we are. And an unashamed plug, because that's what I'm here for. No, it's not really, but I'm an unashamed plug. It is free to join for farmers and non-farmers. So please look on our website or on the leaflets where you're sitting. It is free. And what I've come across in the industry that I'm part of, that free is the favourite word from most farmers. Also, come and please visit us on stand PFB2. And if that means nothing to you, it's down the alleyway near the main entrance. We're down there opposite the leaf tent. We're just near the RSPB tent. We're right down near the main entrance. So please do come and visit us. We have a stand there and we can ask all your questions. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce the panel. They're from the steering group. We have England, Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales steering groups, but they're from the English steering groups, and they're also champions of nature-friendly farming, and what they do is extraordinary. So we have Anna here, who'll be first up. She's a farmer from Northamptonshire with a really interesting backstory, including studying law at university, which more farmers probably need to do, and from the automotive industry. We have Elise, who's a stock person with Natural England. We have Holly, a farmer from Somerset, and we have Matthew, a dairy farmer from Surrey. I'll let them talk about themselves far more than I will. So without further ado, Anna, off you go.
Thank you very much. So a little bit about our farm at home first. So it's a 200-hectare, mostly arable farm. We've got 160 of it is arable, 80 hectares is actually rented, the rest is owned. It's a mixed farm. We've got just over 100 breeding ewes on the farm as well. And it's in Northamptonshire, so just to give you a little bit of a background there. I use a mixture of, if anybody's interested in breeds, we've got mules mostly. We've got some Hebridean sheep for conservation grazing. And also we've got Romneys as well that we're experimenting with different genetics on the farm and what actually is going to suit our landscape and what we've got. The farm is intergenerational, and it's been in the family since the mid 1800s, so quite a long history. I've come into the farm. I married my husband Henry here, married into that farm, and now part of that family business, very much involved. The farm's been on a regenerative journey for the last 40 years. We started chopping straw 40 years ago. My father-in-law was against straw burning, and he just wanted to do things differently. Got a combine that chopped straw, so we've been returning that organic matter back into the soil for many years. About 30 years ago, there was thousands of trees were planted on the farm, ponds. There's always been a real connection with nature on the farm, which is fantastic through generations. I'm really, really proud to be part of that sort of legacy and carrying it forward. 20 years ago, we started min-tilling on the farm, so a different approach. And in the last few years, our journey into sort of regenerative agriculture has really accelerated since I started as well. It's becoming, faster and faster, really. We're now direct drilling more. We've extended our rotations. We're bringing the livestock into the arable rotation as well, which has been, a key part of what I've really pushed for, getting those cover crops grazed, hopefully the crops grazed ultimately, making it all work together as one ecosystem. So yes, that's a little bit about the farm. So in terms of how I got into farming, well, yeah, I'm married a farmer, so that's one way in. But actually, it's been a really natural fit for what I've always enjoyed. I've always enjoyed nature. I've always enjoyed growing food, and I've always enjoyed animals. And those three things, that's what's really brought me onto the farm. Those are not necessarily the things I'm good at though. So my as you mentioned, my background is different for all those things. So I'm actually really good at data analysis, problem solving, system thinking, IT. My background is in law, is in data analysis, and I've done marketing and PR internationally in the automotive industry. So I've sort of that's been my career until a few years ago. I just wanted to get out of that, and I wanted to be involved in farming at home and professionally. And so I finished off my career after COVID. I left with sort of no real plan as to how I was going to do it, what I was going to do, and thought, right, I'm just going to make it work. So I've left my job. I thought, right, I'm going to get into agriculture. And so what I did really is I gave myself a cushion of a few months to get started. Seriously investigated market gardening in the process as well. And then, I just got into trying to find out as much as possible about the industry, getting involved in as many organizations as possible, talking to as many people as possible. So I did, all of that. And I think it's really important when you're entering an industry that you've not been before and you haven't got that track record, is to stack the odds in your favor by doing as many things as possible. So just, a little bit about those. So learning new things. I did organic basis course. I did the plant protection basis course, certificates in sustainable land management, and so on. Facts, really got to know technically about what would need to happen. There are lots of grants and bursaries available. I think if I'd done this again, I would have made much more of those. There are so many opportunities, so many organizations willing to help in so many ways. And I've actually not made best advantage of those, but I think, you really could. And I'm sure I could still do that in the future. The Oxford Farming Conference do bursaries, our local East of England Agricultural Society, Farm in Northamptonshire, they give money away for life-changing experiences. The Worshipful Company do that as well. I mean, I've seen people really take advantage of those and change their perspective on life and the career and the farm completely. And it's fantastic that it's available in the industry. But they're not those things are not necessarily obvious. So it's really important that you're here, you're learning from other people. It's really important to talk to as many people as possible. You'll find out all those opportunities. In terms of support networks, Nature Friendly Farming Network, a really big part of helping, something that's helping me to shape how I see farming and how I see our farm in the future. So it's been fantastic to be involved with like-minded people. We're all different. We don't think the same things necessarily, but we are like-minded. We have similar passions. We're pushing the same direction, and that's really, really inspiring. It's fantastic to be a part of. I've also got involved in Base UK, which is a KE organisation, so knowledge exchange and regenerative agriculture. Now I'm on the steering room of that as well. And there are many others. The Climate Neutral Farms group, we're involved at home, looking at baselining our farm in terms of biodiversity and working with other farmers around how we change our practices. Kettering Agriculture Discussion Group has been quite, there are so many organisations to be involved with, really local, national, FWAG, local water companies we've been working with, get biodiversity audits with them, so many opportunities. The other thing that's really important, that I found really important in my journey, is to focus on what you're good at. And I said, in terms of practical farming, I help as much as I can, across the farm. But actually, what I'm really good at, as I said before, is the data. I'm a really detailed person, analysis. Law. If you give me a contract, I can review that quite swiftly. So that's what I've contributed most to the farm. And I think it's really important to find what you identify as, and what you want to do and what your contribution is, and don't worry about what anybody else thinks about that, or anything. Just be yourself and just find that what you feel comfortable doing, and do that, and find your sense of self. So I'm probably gonna stop here and before I ramble on, Anthony.
You're certainly not rambling on, and I think it's really important. All of us in the industry, people from outside the industry can bring so much to it. And we need to be completely open-minded of all the skills that are not farming-based that can actually add to the farming business. And sometimes the farming world is a very insular world, and we need to be aware of that, I think. And one of the things I always say, what's the greatest danger of farming? For farming, supermarkets, governments, weather, climate change, bad trade deals, but the biggest danger for farming, in my view, is insularity. And actually bringing ideas and new diversity and new experiences to the farming business is so important. Anyway, on that note, over to Elise and and your experiences, please.
Thank you very much. So, thank you everyone for being here. A little bit of a different route into farming. So I work for Natural England, so body of DEFRA, and I'm stock person at Parsons Down National Nature Reserve and Cherry Lodge Farm, which is a 650 acre organic and soon to be certified pasture for life farm. About 420 acres of that whole farm is a site of special scientific interest, which is designated for its plant, flora and fauna of butterflies, such as the marsh fritillary, and we've got some very rare orchids, to which it is designated for that. So we run the whole farm as an organic and pasture-based farm with a herd of longhorns, which are some of the oldest herd in the world, and I have the pleasure of looking after 150 of them. And yeah, my background is non-farming. So my family business is motorbikes, and grew up in South Dorset, and never in a million years did I think I'd be in the position that I am now. I failed my A-levels spectacularly, and thought, what the heck am I going to do? So I went to my local agricultural college in Dorchester and studied countryside management for 2 years. So I knew that I liked being outdoors. I still am a very big bird nerd, and happily with pair of binoculars just looking out the red kites and everything else that's on the farm. And that it put me in a very good position, first off, about that's I wanted to be outdoors. And in my second year of college, there was a module in livestock and conservation use. So conservation grazing back in 2014 was still, I think, very much a new term. Not many people knew about it. Not many people were actually doing it on a large scale, let alone employing people solely in that industry. So I was very fortunate to work for a grazier for the National Trust for 3 months over the summer. It basically gave me a crash course on farming. And I fell in love with native breeds and rare breeds. And I think I wanted to try and get my foot in the door as much as possible, and basically set on a journey of trying to work with near enough every rare breed or native breed that I could. And I've worked with probably about 20 different rare breeds across cattle and sheep, and it's been really lovely, and they are just a great asset to the farming community, I believe. And after working with him, he was like, you need to go to university, you need to pursue the academic career, you did really well at college. So I went to Harper Adams University for 4 years, and did countryside management. So I still wasn't on the sort of agriculture path, and stuck with the kind of countryside side, and did a lot of kind of ecology modules, planning. We did an agriculture module, a lot of forestry. So it was a real kind of broad spectrum. And from doing that, I think I had a more broad and better understanding of the different industries in the rural sector across the UK. And I still wanted to get into kind of sustainable farming, conservation grazing. And I did my placement year with a herd of longhorns up in Lancashire. And that is, well, anyone who knows me knows I absolutely will shout about longhorns all day long. And yeah, fell in love with them and realised that I think that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a stock person or farm manager, something in farming, but in the sustainable side. And when the job came up with Natural England back in 2020, in the middle of lockdown, I was very fortunate to land the job, and I've been there for sort of 4 years now. And when I started, I was very much, not really understanding. I could drive a tractor. I know what a cow looked like. I could move a cow from between A to B. That's fine. But I didn't have the real understanding of what organic farming was, all the paperwork and everything that is involved in basically running a big herd. And I was very fortunate to be surrounded by some really lovely people that have sort of nurtured my career, and helped me, to get where I am now. And I'm also very fortunate to say that doors have opened subsequently from, going to college, going to university, meeting different people. And there was nothing more terrifying about being a townie going into farming with a no farming background, because I feel like there's still a little bit of prejudice about townies coming into farming. And you can try your best. And I think it was just was incredibly supportive, and even going down the pub every Friday with the local farming community has probably been some of the best knowledge sharing that I've ever had, because they want you to, thrive, and they want to see you do well at the same time. And, just being on the phoning people and saying, like, how have you done this? What's going on there? And the power of social media has been really great for me as a younger person, because you can meet people who are in the far ends of like Scotland and the islands, or over in America, who will talk about farming all day long. And for me, it's just learning how they farm and why they farm the way that they do, and getting to know everyone. And that I've managed to sort of pull in to the farm now. We've been organic now for 5 years. We're setting down the route of really, proper nature-friendly farming, sustainable farming. And it can be quite difficult working with the kind of objectives that Natural England wants, but also, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and I want to see the farm do really well. But it's matching the two up. And I think, we're on a really progressive route. We're selling beef direct off farm, which is, when I started, was very much just kind of bubbling under the surface. Now it's really rocketing. We're doing really good sales. We are, again, going through Pasture for Life certification. So all these kind of like really good nature-friendly farm things are being ticked off. But I never knew anything about that. I only knew sort of conventional agriculture, and that was, the way the farm had been run for decades and decades. And now actually, it's been really progressive. And I think, as the farm has moved, I've also had to move with it. You've had to push it on a really good trajectory. So, coming to events like Groundswell and meeting other people and getting off farm, I think it's probably been the best thing for me, is seeing other people, getting to know other young farmers. I loved my 2 years at college. Then I did my 4 years at university, because I was out every day on the ground, doing surveys, doing, scrub bashing with the chainsaw. It was really, really practical. And, I think that was a better route for me than my university experience personally. But I had to work my ass off. I had to get to know other people and put myself out there more than anything, and find different farms to work on. And now, the doors have opened. So I do subcontracted work for local farmers, especially stock work. I'm the youngest trustee for the Longhorn Cattle Society, I think, ever. Very much involved with the breed and the progressive, and being part of their youth development program. So mentoring young farmers coming into Longhorns, and hopefully, putting them on a regen kind of future. So it's been really lovely. And, there's days where it's absolutely horrible, and I kind of go, I really wish I wasn't in farming right now. But I absolutely love it. And I love being able to bring people to the farm. And they're not my own stock. It's not my own farm. But I manage it and I treat it as that. And, you can get a job in farming and say you're a farmer, which, I do. And I also love being a woman in farming, as well, breaking, gender stereotypes and everything else. And it's great when the neighbours drive past and you see them in the tractor, and they're like, oh, there's a woman in the tractor. Oh, my goodness. And you're like, yes, she can drive. Just clarifying. She's not taking the fence out just yet. But I love that. And I love surrounding myself with people who are also super nurturing and understand. They want young farmers. They want new entrants. They want more women in farming under the age of 30. It's just been really great. And I can't fault it. When you're buried in mud after this winter, I feel like, it's still worth it. We're still enjoying it.
Well, there you go. You can get into farming. It needs a lot of hard work, and it needs connections. And what an inspiring story that was. Over to Holly, farmer from Somerset, who is very keen on also putting forward the practicalities of getting into how we get new entrants in, which we really need to do.
Thanks all for coming. I really want to talk about my journey and be really open and honest with you about how I've got there, because I hope that if you're in a similar position in any of those areas, it'll inspire you to sort of carry on, really. So I am from a farming family. My mum and dad were organic dairy farmers, small scale farm on Exmoor. But agriculture was not something that we were sort of encouraged to go into. And it was challenging as a family. Money was tight. It wasn't a hugely productive farm, as small scale dairy often isn't in this day and age. So I didn't go into farming initially, but when I was 19, my dad died and the farm was let out. And that allows me to maybe relook at things. Going through something at a young age allows you to put what's important in front of you. So I slightly changed the career path and didn't go to university, and instead studied countryside management at a local agricultural college, worked for a wildlife trust, the National Trust, where I ended up managing an in-hand farm for the National Trust. And it reignited my desire to get back into farming. I always say it's like a call back to the land. So we initially, me and my husband, who is not from a farming background, got 25 sheep and put them on my mum's farm, got a field back out of the tenancy that she had, or the farmlet that she had running. And that was affordable because we were both working. And then we built them up to about 90 heads of sheep and just allowing it to tick along. And a farm tenancy came up in our area. They are really rare. We didn't want to leave Exmoor. We had no desire to move. We had our first son was then born. This was in 2015. And I initially completely dismissed it. And I said, we don't have the money. This is not something that we are going to be able to apply for. And Mark said, well, let's just look at it at least. Let's, not approach it with that negative mindset. And we looked at it and we thought, wow, what an opportunity. So the farm is a National Trust farm. It was the first farm to come up on the estate for 25 years. So it was competitive, it's fair to say, but it's really important to think about how we can do this with very little capital and money. I did the application myself. I didn't employ a land agent. I think that is probably the best advice that I can give most people when they're applying for a tenancy. Put yourself into it, because they said the application spoke to them because they could tell it was us. It was honest, and there were mistakes in it. We had put a 3-year business plan in. Absolutely, there were mistakes in it, but they knew that we were truthful to ourselves. It wasn't just written by a generic sort of land agent. And we started with £20,000. That was essentially as a result of my dad dying. We were given a small amount of money each. And we arrived on the farm in 2016 with 100 sheep and some sheep hurdles and a dog. So the farm is 200 acres. There was debate about whether it would be a farm, but luckily they kept it as a farm, which is a perfect entry point for new farmers. And I do challenge landlords to say, keep those small farms small, because that when you have got low capital, that means we could actually take it on. So we very much focused on investing to get a return, a quick cash flow. So we immediately, first 6 months, we had a large rent payment to make, and we had to hit that 6-month window. So sheep initially, they could bring money much quicker than cattle, but I definitely wanted cattle in the system. Really limited machinery. I don't believe in putting money into something that's going to sit there and not earn me anything. Machinery doesn't. I have no desire to have a big tractor, much to my son's disgust. He's very unhappy of our David Brown yard tractor that probably only runs 50% of the time as well anyway. So we utilised specialist contractors, and in that first year when we weren't stocked enough to keep the cash flow growing, we put a huge amount of hay down and sold the hay, paid the contractor bill and helped pay our rent. And then the other sort of element of the tenant farm that we took on was it was in a really, really poor state. It is slowly recovering, but that takes time. And then we wanted to be debt-free in our journey, but we changed that part way through because I had a desire to build a shorthorn herd. Cows were expensive. COVID arrived, and that allowed us an opportunity to get a bounce back loan. So this is why I think it's really important that as farmers we talk about money. We don't hide what we spend or what we need. So we got a bounce back loan for £30,000. We invested that in diversification on the farm. My husband works off farm as a tree surgeon. We need that wage coming in. I manage the farm, and I bought some shorthorns. Possibly not the wisest investment with our money, but 3 years later, we're getting the return. We work really closely with the landlord, and that's another message I'd say as new entrants. Don't allow others to cloud your view of a situation. If you want to build a positive relationship with your landlord, go in with a clean slate, and that will get the best results. And we have been on a journey, and we have been really honest and had a shared relationship with our landlord. It's not your average tenant-landlord relationship. We've spoken to them when we've struggled. For example, we went down with TB, so we couldn't sell some cattle, and we spoke to them and we said, we're going to struggle to pay our rent. And I think that's really important to say that. And they said, that's fine. We can see that you're trying. We know how hard you're working, and we just had a delayed rent payment. So this is what we need, is better relationships between landlords and tenants, and also being honest with ourselves about what we are capable of, and not being afraid of making mistakes along the way.
Thanks, Holly. And our final speaker is Matthew, who's a dairy farmer from Surrey. Poor chap got stuck on the M25 for goodness knows how long this morning, so fantastic you made it, Matthew, after all the trials and tribulations that us in South East England have to deal with sometime. So over to you, Matthew. Let's hear your story.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I did have to do a bit of a mad dash across the car park and showground to just about get here in time. Just to give you a bit of background on me before I talk about the farm. I didn't come from a farming background at all either. Very far from it. I grew up in the town. No connections with farming or the food industry. But I knew it's what I wanted to do from a very young age. I'm not sure where that sort of calling came from, but from about the age of 12, I knew that's what I wanted to focus on. So after school, I went to Plumpton College, which I absolutely loved. I did a first diploma and then a national diploma in agriculture. And I was always particularly interested in livestock, particularly dairy. And during college, I worked on a mixed farm, mainly beef and arable. That was a National Trust tenancy, and that's really where I developed an interest in more nature-friendly farming methods. After college, I was a herdsman for a few years on a dairy farm, and after that, I worked as a relief milker, mainly for a livestock services company. And that's really what gave me the freedom to be able to start rearing my own livestock, which was always my aim. I had that time sort of between my relief milking jobs to do something else, I guess. And I was lucky enough to in a very sort of informal way, rent some buildings and a bit of ground from the people who I originally worked for, the mixed farm, who were sort of slowing down a bit, and sold their cows, and that freed up the sheds. So I was able to buy calves from the dairies that I worked on, reared those, and eventually started up a suckler herd. And again, fairly organically, an opportunity came up locally to rent the farm where I'm at now, which is a small, it's only about 52 acres, all permanent pasture. John, who owned it, was really looking looking to give a young person an opportunity, and the farmer neighbouring me sort of told him about me, and that's really how that started, which was I was very lucky there. When John died, he left the farm to the Countryside Regeneration Trust, who are they're a sort of a farming and wildlife charity. They own about 18 farms, I think, across the country, and they're really trying to promote regenerative and nature-friendly farming. And they've been really supportive of us and what we're trying to do. We've just agreed a 15-year tenancy with them, so we've got a bit of security, and that's really helped me as a new entrant, being able to get that tenancy very informally, really, and then being taken on as almost a sitting tenant and go from there, which has been really, really helpful. So the farm, originally I was just farming fairly commercially, a suckler beef herd and a little sheep flock. And in 2020, me and my partner started Nutfield Dairy, and we changed to a little dairy farm, a micro dairy, I guess you call it. We milk about 25 dairy shorthorn cows. And originally we were bottling their milk and selling it on milk rounds, which was pretty successful. It went down very well locally. We started around COVID, around that sort of lockdown period, so home deliveries were in demand anyway, so that really gave us a boost. We did that for a good couple of years, I guess, and when the production costs really went up with sort of energy costs and all the rest of it, it became difficult to keep it economically viable. So we decided to really change what we did, and we started making cheese and yogurt. We now make 2 cheeses, a cheddar cheese, which is mature for at least 6 months, and a Surrey Red, which is a sort of a bit of our own creation, really, but it's based on a French Alpine cheese. And around that time, also, I started developing a bit of an interest in soil, and that led to reading and listening to audiobooks, sort of Gabe Brown and Nicole Masters and Alan Savory and all that, people like that. We joined the Pasture for Life Society, and we're hoping to be accredited maybe this year. We're sort of working towards that. And we really began farming very holistically, regeneratively, splitting all our fields up into paddocks. So we've got a good sort of 30-day rotation now, and we're really finding that is improving biodiversity and being really beneficial to our soil health. And that meant that we could, since then we haven't used any fly repellent, and that's improved our insect life, particularly our dung beetles. I did a workshop on dung beetles the other day, and that seems to have led to a bit of an obsession with not being able to walk past the cow pat without sort of taking a video or rifling through it. But no, it's fascinating what goes on in a cow pat, I must say. I never appreciated it. And we started leaving our calves with their calves, which is something I've wanted to do for a little while. It goes down very well with our customers. It's quite, that's what people I think really struggle with the dairy industry, is that we generally take calves away around birth. So it's not easy leaving them on. It can be a bit challenging. I'm always interested to find out how other people manage it. We tend to leave them on for at least two to 3 months, and then we'll start slowly weaning them off. But it is a bit tricky. But we do get better calves and hopefully happier animals as well. That pretty much. Well, at the moment we are we're looking for a way to go back into supplying our milk. Our old customer, we supplied about 250 households, and they do miss that sort of superior flavoured milk from a local dairy farm. So we're just trying to get a project going where we're going to convert our old electric milk flow into a sort of a mobile shop with milk dispensers on it and a yogurt dispenser, and we're going to go for that sort of zero waste marketing to match the sustainable farming that we're doing as well. Yeah.
Matthew, thanks very much indeed. Now we're going to open it up to questions. And whilst I'm looking for questions, hands up, lots of hands up, that's really good. There's a lady there, we've got a roving mic. Whilst we wait for the mic to come here, I will just say that I run a country estate, it's not mine. And I think all of us in the farming world, I'm the landowner's representative. And all the stories you've heard have been to landowners giving faith in new entrants to make a go of it. And I say to anyone who's a farmer or a landowner or land manager here, think how we can get new entrants into our industry, because it's our lifeblood, because our industry will not have a future if we don't do it. So I'm turning on its head, really important, and the panel here just shows you how important it is for landlords to have that responsible attitude. Right, I've done that now. Over to the first question.
Thanks very much. Sarah Palmer, National Federation of Young Farmers Clubs. Thank you for some great presentations. And can I just ask the panel, how aware are you all of the Institute of Agriculture and Horticulture, commonly known as TIA, relatively newly launched? Because that organisation, there's a lot of collaboration between organisations to help people like you. Are you aware of it? Would it have been really helpful when you started your journey, and can we spread that message? Thank you.
So I can say, so I'm aware of it. I spent quite some time talking to Janet Swadling about her vision for TIA. And I think it's really important. CPD is really important. Actually, we don't have that structured CPD program for farmers. We have it for agronomy, we have it for many things, but not for farming. And we don't have a chartered farmer qualification or anything like that. So I think that vision is really, really powerful. How we get there and how long it's going to take, I don't know, but I think it's really important to structure and help businesses structure how they develop their teams. I mean, one thing I didn't mention, I do have a full-time job as well. So I lead a team of 14 people across the UK as part of HCB. So I know all about the importance of development of people. And I think if we could do that on our farms and with our families, or however it's structured, it's fantastic.
I just want to jump in and maybe challenge a little bit. I think organisation support is really important, but I don't think that is going to drive the new entry that we need. I think we need a farming community that is more supportive. And I don't think as farmers I think there's an element of farming where almost people wait for you to make mistakes and then give you the advice. We need to be more welcoming as an industry, not wait for somebody to make a mistake and then say, oh yeah, I could have told you that. So organisations are great, but we need practical on the ground support. And as farmers, we need to be bringing people onto our land and supporting them.
I haven't been aware of that. I'm sure organisations like that are helpful. I would find helpful. I think as a new entrant, you tend to get. You're mega busy, and you don't tend to look for these opportunities that would help you, particularly when we're starting out and we're having to do a full-time job as well as another full-time job. And I think I do miss opportunities like that for that reason. Yeah.
Okay, looking for other questions. Right, so we're going. There's a lady there, and then you, sir, with the shirt.
It's a good shirt. I would be curious to hear more about your experiences as women in farming, particularly the intersections between being a new entrant, young women farmers.
So I'll go because there was 8 of us in my course at uni, and I was one of 2 women. I think agriculture is still very much in education is severely lacking from very tiny kids. Understanding of the food chain and where food comes from is lacking. And I would like to think if there was a better understanding in very young education that it would influence a greater diversity, both male and female, but in general. But I will try and always shout about it, whether people like it or not. I love being a woman farmer and telling people that you can do it. Don't be afraid, because I was always in the minority through education, through working in a very male dominated industry. But why can't women do it? And I think I know Holly will agree with me. I think women in general are. They're better with stock. They're more compassionate. They understanding. I don't know if that's just the nurturing instinct with being who we are, but genuinely, I find I'm a better stockman because I understand. I can relate to the animals more. Sometimes more level-headed. Sometimes, genuinely, But I will always try and encourage. And I've been back to my college and been back to university and said, grab the bull by the horns and go for it. What's stopping you being a woman coming into farming? Genuinely, what is stopping you? Because I know some badass women farmers sat next to 2 of them here, and it's there's just be more of us. I really want encourage, and I don't know how, but social media has been very good for me, and relating to people and understanding the barriers of why women don't want to get into farming. But I will always shout about it from as much as I can, really.
So I see myself as a farmer, not a woman farmer. So I have been a little bit around the houses about this point. I sometimes think there is a need for it, and sometimes I don't. It's not that there's not a need. I just want people to see me as a farmer. And I am really honest. I am not as strong as my husband. And that's okay. I think we have different skill sets. I have smaller hands. I can lamb sheep easier. I think we should celebrate that we have differences. And I think partnerships create the best teams, certainly on our farm. And I think just visibly using or having women on the stage will encourage people to know it's a career choice. Maybe that's controversial, but that's how I feel. I just want people to see me as a farmer, nothing else.
I'll make a little comment just to say. Well, no, all I was going to say is my partner Betsy's at home today, and her capability has allowed me to be able to come here. So not only is she milking the cows, being responsible for everything, but she's also got a 3-year-old and a 4-month-old in tow. And I wouldn't be able to do that, and I wouldn't be able to do Nutfield Dairy without her. So,
Good answer.
Hi, Russ Carrington. I'm a coach and mentor for farmers, some of whom are young. And I wanted to ask, because some of you have mentioned having off-farm income, and do you think that's a prerequisite for new entrants to have other sources of income to help in those perhaps early years? But are we being honest about the viability of farming as new entrants? And can we perhaps delve into the finances a bit more? I know, Holly, you've touched on that, because I think we're seeing lots of people very passionate about following farming careers and sometimes getting into quite sticky situations financially.
Gosh, I suppose I'd just start by saying that it certainly helped me to have a financial cushion, and having had a career before farming, I've been able to have that time off to just reset and think, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to set myself up for success and learn and have that time? So it's certainly helped me to structure it that way.
I can't really comment, really. My salary is paid by the government, in all honesty. But, I still work for other farmers. I still want to get out there. And if they pay me as an additional thing. But for me, I'm putting money in the bank potentially to buy my own herd event, in how many years' time. You've got to be, as much income going into it. And if you've got someone who's going to support you, so, my other half doesn't work in farming, and that's always trying to fund that pot of money to potentially go into a tenancy or buy our own stock and get grazing. You're only hopefully, like you say, adding padding to it all and trying to support yourself more than anything. You can't really go wrong. Try and get as much in the bank, but whatever works.
You're right. We're not honest enough. I think we need to be more honest as an industry about how tough it is. We absolutely couldn't be doing it without a second income. That wouldn't be practical. That makes it really, really challenging, particularly with children. But luckily my husband is self-employed, so can take time off during lambing and calving time. And it's how we create honesty as an industry. But the other side, just to flip the coin, going into something with really low capital can kind of be freeing, in the sense that when we moved onto our farm, it was in a really poor state. And the first thing that everyone said is, you need to get lime down, you need to do this. We were putting herbal lays in, but we bluntly didn't have the money. And actually that allowed us to essentially go cold turkey into a regenerative journey. But that's been a really positive way actually into it. And another good friend of mine who farms, it was only at the point where he was in quite substantial debt that it allowed him to rethink his whole business. and go on a different journey, it's not necessarily a bad thing to be approaching something with very low income. It's challenging, but not bad.
I think I've had to learn to be a better businessman as I've gone on, really. I had to work full time whilst we started. I'm only doing our own enterprise now, but I wouldn't say we're not a profitable business just yet, really. And I think where I went wrong, where I see other young entrants going wrong, is sort of trying to start at that point where it's more 5 years down the line and trying to get your animals to a more stock, basically. And if I have my time over, I'd really try and grow on profit rather than debt. I've always grown on debt. I've always borrowed money, and that does make life tough, really. And I think as well, when I started, when I got my tenancy, I really farmed the way that I'd been taught to, which was fairly commercially, and that was inputs, fertilizer, and everything. And I really think if I had that knowledge from the beginning, more holistic knowledge, I'd be in a better place now.
Sorry, Anthony, I just missed the whole grant element as well. We should touch on grants. Obviously, initially BPS was really important for us. That's being phased out. We're in countryside stewardship, and a lot of investment we've put into the farm we've done through grant payments. So FIPL, Somerset Rivers Authority has helped fund fencing, new hedgerows, European Climate Fund that we were part of on our estate has helped fund. So even I've managed to get diversification funding through Hinkley Power Point, which is a nuclear power station EDF fund, to fund doors and windows in a barn so that we could diversify. I think it's really important as a farmer to look at every available avenue before you go down the debt route.
And I suppose to add to that as well, I think going back to the relationship with our landlords, and how they can support new farming business. If you're going into it and you've got a business plan, you can try and stack the odds in your favour, and you're talking to those people. There are lots of opportunities. So, for example, I've come across, Tim May, who's here, Kingsclear Estates. He's really keen on investing into businesses that can come into farms and bring that diversity of enterprises and communities onto farms. Ben Taylor Davis talked about it in his talks. John Pearson was here. He farms in Cambridge, and he's got Market Gardener on his farm, featured in 6 Inches of Soil film. Those relationships between the kind of the landlord and other businesses around is really important. And that could be a really, really great route into farming too.
I'm going to give my own example on this very quickly. On the estate, we had a farm worker's son, and there's some allotments, and we were going to plough them up because no one wanted them. And he said, at 14, can I take on these 5 allotments? And we said yes. And at 14, he dug them all over and started supplying, for a bit of pocket money, local restaurants and shops. He was then showed such enthusiasm. He then tried to get to college and university to do ecology. Because he showed such enthusiasm, in his spare time, he managed to get an acre of someone else to make into a vegetable farm, a no-dig vegetable farm, which is applied again, restaurants and so on. He then got, because of his attitude, got 150 acres of management down the road. He worked for FWAG, he worked for Southern Water, but he's got his foothold in the industry, and he became Young Farmer of the Year. He was awarded Young Farmer of the Year. So there's 2 stories there. 1, the enthusiasm to get on there, and 2, any landlords in there, give them the opportunity, because the right young person, the right new entrant can actually deliver. So I think it's a really inspiring story. If you ever come across it, look for Young Farmer of the Year award, and you'll see his journey. Right, next questions. Any other? Gentleman there.
Good morning. I hope you can cope with some French accents. I apologize. I've been here for 12 years. It doesn't go away. You're speaking about the right tenant, right? And that's probably my question. My career so far has nothing to do with agriculture. I've considered recently becoming a new entrant, and I must say that I admire you a lot for the courage that you have. I've decided to use my skills in a different way. I've been inspired by initiatives in France, in Belgium, in Spain, etc., where people bring funds together to acquire farms, remove them from the speculative market, and enable new entrants to come and farm them regeneratively. That's what I'm trying to set up in the UK. I'm still at feasibility phase. There is, if we want to do it right, the legal structuration is hugely complex. But long story short, I will have 2 jobs at some point if I manage to take this off. One is to find investors. The other one is to find new entrants that I can trust. What would be your recommendation to find these new entrants?
Well, you can take that one. One at a time.
I couldn't answer, from an experience perspective, all I would say is meet the people and just, I think there's nothing more important than just meeting people. We have a plot of land on our farm tenancy. Because we sell meat boxes, we knew that veg would be really positive to grow alongside them. That was not in our capabilities. So we advertised on social media. If anybody was interested in setting up a veg growing plot on the farm, we charge them the same rent that we pay. So it's not a profit making for us. And a young couple from a neighbouring village came in and they were completely the right fit. And that was just through a conversation that came about. So yeah.
I was just going to agree, saying I think what's the one thing that farmers can do really well is talk. So if someone knows someone who's looking for a job or looking for land or looking to graze some sheep somewhere, that if the opportunity's there, people will hear about it. Again, harping on about social media, you put it on one of the Facebook groups and it will appear and someone will know. And there's always someone looking. There's always a new entrant will always be there scouring, trying to find a piece of land to put some animals on or take on, a farm or anything. So it's just getting out there, talking to people and trying to make those right connections. If you think your farm is going to go organic, go down to Soil Association and have a chat with them, see if they've got someone who might be on their waiting list, waiting and ready to chomp at the bit to get someone in. That's how I've, found more work and more friends, is just chatting, see what they've got to offer.
So my name's Jess and I'm a young farmer in Hertfordshire, and I know an awful lot of people that go into young farmers and they're just trying to find a way into the industry. So contacting any young farmers in the local areas is really important, and getting it out in those newsletters, because loads of those members would be so keen to get involved. So I think it's very important to include them. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
You really haven't interrupted, and that's a very, very good advice. And the young farmer clubs can actually produce, and despite horrible publicity recently, the young farmer groups can do so much positive for our industry. They really can, if properly run, and they are on most occasions. Do we have any more questions? We have got lots of questions. I think that gentleman there with the beard, sorry, I don't know, has been, are you putting yes, there. Okay. You had your hand up earlier, so I'm going to you first, sir.
Hello, hi. This might be a slightly unpopular opinion, but it touches on the thing you were talking about, the right new entrants. So there's always a lot of stuff about how do you make it easier for people to get into farming. And it's important that it's possible, but it's important not to make it really easy for everyone to get in, because in order to get the right people in the industry, you have to have an element of selection under pressure. Same when you're breeding livestock, bulls or rams. It needs to be possible, but at the end of the day, I don't think over the years that, because I'm a new entrant, I started 15 years ago and I've built up a business. And over those years, I've met a lot of people who are sharp operators, and I've not ever met a sharp operator who never got somewhere. The people who haven't got somewhere often, unfortunately, aren't operating at the level they need to sometimes to get to where they want to be or to be where they want to be. There's an element of, there's skills they need to learn, there's stuff that needs to go away. A lot of people will always moan about how it's just really hard to get into the industry. It's impossible. It's not impossible. There are opportunities out there. It's doable. But unfortunately, it's not always just because everyone else is stopping you doing it. Sometimes it's just because if you're not getting the tenancy, if you're not getting the opportunity, because there is someone else who's more skilled, who's spent more time, who's worked more, who's learned more. And sometimes, we just need to remember that it's those things, it's that upskilling, it's the stuff you're saying, it's that learning process, it's being financially good. Starting off and being it's a business, it's not a lifestyle. You need to make money. If you want to build a business, you've got to be day one, not just this is really lovely, but you've got to be hard-nosed, making money, putting stuff in, cash flow, and working as a business person, not just an idealistic thing because you just want to be a farmer. Do you know what I mean? So although it needs to be more possible, just all these bodies who just want to make it kind of easy in a way isn't always necessarily a good thing. Anyway.
So we need diggers, not dreamers, in the industry. And that might not be popular, sorry. You have to work hard, but to counter what you're saying, the issue is access to land, as in, if you're on Exmoor, it's very, very tricky to find land. And that is because we've got a financialisation of land has occurred. So bigger businesses are able to buy that land up and make it, when you're living on a rural wage, inaccessible to get the land. So I think that's where the shift needs to happen, is it is doable because I'm doing it, but I think we need to be realistic about what a realistic rent is, particularly with the loss of BPS. And I don't think landlords currently, not all of the commercial landlords, are realistic about where rent needs to be.
Okay, I think I don't know when we're meant to wind up, probably very shortly. So we're going to have to make this the last question, then we'll have a quick roundup. Okay.
I will be very quick. Good morning, everybody. My name's William Hudson. Here's 2 quick ideas. First of all, don't forget your county farms. We have a very interesting conversation about county farms releasing, say, 10 acres off a 500-acre farm. The rent is the gross margin, average gross margin from the farmer's achieving. So all he does is plough less land and gets the same money in. The next bit that's interesting, I have a kind of affiliation and work with Rittle. We are considering doing a certificate of competence for horticulture. So you wave a piece of paper in front of a potential landlord's nose and it says, I know what I'm doing, well, vaguely. And it gives him some confidence. But I think there's some 2 really interesting ideas there. But go and badger the hell out of your county farms, because they have a duty of care, and a lot of them can't think their way out of a paper bag. So go and give them a kicking.
Well, there's advice for you. I know it's coming up for the hour, so we're going to wind up now. I'd like to thank this panel very much indeed, because I think they're really inspiring stories. And it's very hard for new entrants to get in, but they are amazing. Thank you for your attendance. Now, the NFN, come and join us. We have a newsletter, has lots of information about farming in it as well. So please come and join us. But I'd like you to thank the panel for all their inspirational talks.